Hey guys, Mrs. Dan's here. So I told you I was going to do every single question in lesson 14. Therefore, the video could be a little lengthy. So it's set up so that you can fast forward to whatever question you need to watch me do. Um, I am going to go quickly, so if you ever need to pause, of course you do so. When we're solving by graphing, the equations have to be in slope-intercept form, which means y equals mx plus b form. And both equations are, the slope is 3/5, the y-intercept is 0. On the second equation, the slope is 3/5, and the y-intercept is -2. So without even graphing, I see they have the same slope. Therefore, these lines will be parallel. Therefore, there will be no solution because there is no point that they share. But I'll graph it. Make sure you count up 3/5 or the other way. Make sure you label the line. And we say no solution. It says to explain why the lines do not share any points. So questions 2 and 3. What is the solution? And if there's no solution or infinitely many, explain why. Again, it's in slope-intercept form. So the slope is -1/2. The y-intercept is 2. The second one, the slope is -1, and the y-intercept is 5. These lines will intersect because the slopes are different. First one, you start at 2, and it's negative, so go down and right. Of course, you could go in the other direction. You always have to label your lines. This is a negative slope also, goes down one, right one. Right there, I found it. Label the line. Point to this, call it the solution. Write its name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -1. And on your quiz, it will tell you to do a check if there is one solution. This one doesn't tell us to do a check. On your quiz, though, it will tell you to. Number 3, we have to get it into the correct form. I have to try and get y by itself. So to get y by itself, I want to add x to both sides. And y equals, I always like writing the x term first, x plus 2. So the slope is 1, the y-intercept is 2. And then if I get the second equation in the correct form, I will subtract 4x from both sides. And common mistake, people forget this minus y, which means it's a negative y. I like writing down the x stuff first. This one is positive, so I'm going to put a +1. But I don't like that -1, that negative in front of the x. It really means there's a -1 coefficient, so I have to divide both sides. the slope is 4, and the y-intercept is -1. So I'll graph the first one, starts at 2, goes up 1, right 1. I always label it with the original equation. You are allowed to label it with the other one, but I like the original. Second equation starts at -1. The slope is up 4 to the right 1. I found it. That's the solution. It is at 1, 3. If it said to check, I would, but it doesn't say check. What is the solution? If there's no solution, tell why. Show all work and check only number 4. Oh, only number 4 has to be checked. So this is the one where I have to do my checks. I'm just going to remind myself. And only an algebraic solution. So algebraic means substitution or elimination. So it depends on what it's set up for. Number 4 is set up for substitution because y is by itself. I would use this as a substitute and plug it into the y. So 4x plus 10 equals 3x plus 9. Now we're just trying to solve for x. I will subtract 3x. I will subtract 10. X is -1. Once you find your x, you plug it back in to find your y. So I'm going to plug a -1 in place of the x. So I got that y is 6. So the solution is -1, 6. It asked us to check number 4. So I'm going to check this one. Remember, check number 1. Use the original equation and plug in both x and y. So I'll plug in the 6 and the -1. So first check worked. I'll do check number 2 here. Place of y goes 6. Place of x, -1. And -3 plus 9 is 6. So the second check worked. I don't have to check the others. It said only number 4. This is set up for elimination. There aren't any opposites though. I'm going to multiply the bottom equation by -2 to make the x's opposite. So the top equation stays the same. The bottom equation is now a -2x minus 4y equals -2 times 0 is 0. And now that I have opposites, I can add my equations together. And those are gone. I'm left with 1y equals -1. Got my y. I have to plug this into one of the equations to find x. So I'm going to plug it into the second equation. It really doesn't matter what equation you plug it into. You should get the same answer. But in place of y, I'll put the -1. I'm trying to figure out what x is. X is 2. Number 6 is set up for elimination, except there's no opposites. So I'm just going to multiply by a -1. That would make opposites. So the top equation stays the same. The bottom equation, everything changes signs because I multiplied by a negative. And I can see already that this is going to have a no solution. and it's because the x's get eliminated and the y's get eliminated, but the constants don't. So when I add the constants, I get 30, and on the left side, if everything gets eliminated, it means I'm left with 0. And then you say, what the heck? This has no solution. Kristen spent $131 on shirts. That's a total amount of money. And fancy shirts cost $28, plain shirts cost $15. This tells me my two different items. And she bought a total of 7 items, I guess. How many of each kind did she buy? So this is another total. So remember, when you have two totals, that means our equations will be in the form of ax plus by equals, I use a t for total. So I need $131 as a total, and I need 7 items as a total. And I'm going to do my two let statements with my two different items. One of the items is fancy shirts, so I'll let x equal number of fancy shirts. And then I'll let y equal number of plain shirts. And to get the total of 131, I have to use these numbers. The 28 goes with fancy, so the 28 goes with x. And 15 goes with plain, so 15 goes with y. Remember, this is money, and this is money, and it adds up to be money. But this 7 is a number of items, so I just use the let statements, just the x and the y with not a number next to it. They have coefficients of 1 each, but it's not like a number that I see in the words. And this, I would say, is set up for elimination. You can multiply the bottom by negative 28, or you can multiply it by negative 15. Either way would eliminate for you. The first equation stays the same. The second equation is now a negative 28x minus 28y equals negative 28 times 7. Of course, you're allowed to use a calculator, or you could just multiply it yourself. And it's 196. Negative 196. The x's are eliminated. The y's, 15 and a negative 28 is negative 13. And a 131 and a negative 196 is a negative 65. I divide both sides by negative 13, and 65 divided by 13 is 5. And negative divided by negative is positive. So I have 5 plain shirts. Plug this in to one of the equations. The bottom one's easy. I could even do mental work. I know that the x must be 2, right? X plus 5 equals 7. What's x? I really don't even have to do this algebraic work. I know that there are 2 fancy shirts. Next, there are 13 animals in the barn. That's a total. Some are chickens and some are pigs. Oh, those are my let statements. I'm going to let x equal the chickens and y equal the pigs. I always just kind of go in the order that I see it. It wouldn't matter if you did your let statements the other way. If you do all your math right, you should still get the same answer in the end. There are 40 legs in all. Oh, that's a total number of legs. How many of each animal are there? So I have 2 totals. The total of 13 comes from the animals, and my let statements are the animals, so just an x plus a y. But the 40 comes from like some hidden numbers. You know how we always take a number and put it with the variable? So we have to think about what number goes with the x. Well, they're talking about legs, and x is for chickens. So how many legs do chickens have? Yeah, 2. And then how many legs do pigs have? 4. And then here's your system. We can solve this one, I guess, by elimination. I'm going to multiply the top by a negative 2. So I have a negative 2x minus 2y equals negative 26. The bottom stays the same. When I add these, the x's are eliminated. 2y equals negative 26 plus 40. That's positive, sorry. And then divide both sides by 2. So y equals 7. Y is pigs, there are 7 pigs. To find your x, plug it into the easier equation, the top one. Obviously, you can figure out that there will be 6 chickens, because 6 plus 7 is 13. And if you did it by substitution, you would show this work. Okay, we're getting there. Number 9, you're visiting Baltimore and a taxi company charges a flat fee of $3. That sounds like an initial fee for using the taxi and 75 cents per mile. Oh, per mile, that's a rate of change. So this will be written in y equals mx plus b form. So write an equation where you can find the cost, and they're already telling you the let statements. Let x represent the number of miles and y represent the total cost. So y equals 0.75x plus 3. So x is the number of miles. So this is the answer to part A. Part B is asking how much would a taxi ride cost for 8 miles? 8 miles, remember x is the miles, so just plug in an 8 in place of the x, because y is your cost. So you get, oops, so you get 9. And remember, it's a cost. How much would a taxi ride for 8 miles cost? It would cost $9. If a taxi ride costs 15, oh, now they're telling me the y number. So for part C, I'm going to put a 15 in place of y, and I'm going to figure out what x is. I got to figure out how many miles. So this wasn't really considered a system because it was just one equation. But in part B, they told me to plug in an 8 for x, and in part C, they're telling me to plug in a 15 for y. So then we just use our calculator and do 12 divided by 0.75. And x is miles, so I just found out that we can travel 16 miles. Okay, number 10. Jonathan and his friend Kelly started saving money for their vacation on the same day. Jonathan started with 150. That's an initial fee. And plans to add $5 to the total every week. That's a rate of change. Kelly started with 200 and plans to add $3 to the total every week. So this is Kelly's rate of change, and this is Kelly's starting amount. So again, this is in y equals mx plus b form, because remember, m is your rate of change and b is your initial amount. So I have to write two equations, one for Jonathan and one for Kelly. And remember, your x is always the variable next to the rate of change. So to figure out what to let x equal, if you go look at the rate of change and see what it's about, it's every week. It means that x is the number of weeks. And it should be the same for both Jonathan and Kelly. So you could go and look at Kelly's, and hers is also every week. So that's what tells you that x is a number of weeks. Y will be how much money they have. So I guess it would be the savings. So for Jonathan, we're going to write y equals 5x plus 150. Because remember, this is the rate of change and this is the starting amount. For Kelly, we'll say y equals 3x plus 200. Now this is a system because there are two equations, and we do have y by itself, so this system would be nice to solve by substitution. And I found x is 25. So it's asking after how many weeks will Jonathan's savings be the same as Kelly's savings. So they're just asking for how many weeks. X is the number of weeks, so we could say their savings will be equal after 25 weeks. So if we were to talk about this problem a little bit more, we can see that Jonathan didn't start with as much as Kelly, but he was saving more each week. So it makes sense that he can catch up to Kelly, right? So at the 25th week is when he caught up to Kelly. And then after that 25 weeks, it means Jonathan's going to pass Kelly. So these kinds of equations with rate of change, almost always one starts off lower, but the rate of change is greater. Therefore, they catch up and they're equal at some point, and then they pass each other. So just keep that in mind, because we could always like answer questions about who'll have more money after 30 weeks. And without plugging anything in, I know Jonathan will, because Jonathan caught up and passed Kelly. And if I ask who's going to have money at like 20 weeks, now that's still Kelly, because Kelly started with more, and Jonathan doesn't catch up until the 25th week. So those kinds of questions will be on your test. I'll be asking those. Mrs. Dan says 21 coins. Oh, that's a total number of coins. Totaling $3.45, so that's another total. So this has two totals. So I'm going to have two equations, something with a 21 at the end, and something with $3.45 at the end. If she only has dimes and quarters, those are my two different items. So let x equal number of dimes and y equals number of quarters. So when we write the rest of the equation, this money part is important. Since this is money, I need to include money with my x and y. I can't just say x plus y equals that. How much is a dime worth? It is 10 cents. So to write 10 cents mathematically, we like to write 0.10, right, because it looks like 10 cents. So 0.10 is the number that's attached to the x. A quarter is 25 cents, so 0.25 is the number attached to the y. Since this is about money and this is about money, that's why it went with the total of $3.45. But 21 is just about the number of coins, and these let statements are just about the number of items. So that's why it's just an x plus y there. Maybe you want to do elimination. Maybe you want to multiply the top equation by a negative 0.10 to make the x's eliminate. So when I multiply through, I'm going to do my work down here. I get this top equation becomes negative 0.10x plus a negative 0.10y equals negative 2.1. The bottom equation I'll leave the same. And then I can add these equations together. The x's are eliminated. I'm left with 0.15y equals $1.35. Divide both sides by 0.15. So y equals 9. Y is number of quarters, so I can write that there are 9 quarters. I can plug into the top equation. In place of y, I'll put the 9. So there are 12 dimes. All right, last question. Jennifer's family saving money for Jennifer to go to college. They currently have $2,500 in the bank, so that sounds like a starting amount. And they save $150 each month. Yep, this is definitely a rate of change question. This each month is the rate of change, and this is their initial fee, which is their B. So that was Jennifer's family. So y equals 150x plus 2,500. And then I'm going to write something for Barbara's family. They currently have 900, that's their starting amount, and they save 250 a month, so that's their rate of change. Again, without going any further, I could see that Barbara starts with less, but they're saving more each month. So Barbara will catch up to Jennifer and pass Jennifer. They're asking when will both families have the same amount of savings. Let's also just do a let statement quickly. So x, since it says each month, is the number of months. Y is their savings. And in order to answer the question, I will do it by substitution. So I get 16 for X. X is the number of months. They ask, when will both families have the same amount of savings? In 16 months. So show how you arrived at your answer algebraically. This was an algebraic method. They don't ask how much money they'd have, so I don't have to answer that. Again, if there's other questions about who will have more money when, remember 16 is your magic number. So Barbara started with less, which means less than 16 months, she has less money. But Barbara will catch up to Jennifer in the 16th month and then pass her. So months 17 and 18 and 19 and so on, now Barbara's going to have more money. So hopefully this was helpful. Long video, I hope it was helpful, like I said, and good thing you were able to fast forward. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.